Tikuna Timanya Varbeim. Tikun Memchet. This is the Tikun of number 48 in the Tikunei Zohar. Now, why is it called a Tikun? Like we said, because this is not just reading or a lesson. When you read it, even if you don't understand it, of course, if you understand it, it's much better. It does a Tikun for our neshama. And the Arizal, the rabbis bring down that he said it's very special to read this one. That's why they have it in the Sidurim, to read it every day for a certain tikkun of the nefesh and other things. And it's worthwhile to say not only this one, but any of the tikkunim, because they make a tikkun, and really any Zohar in general makes a tikkun. This is the only book of Torah Shebe'al Peh, of the oral law, that they say if you learn and you read even without understanding, it still makes a big impression on the soul and makes all kinds of rectifications, tikkunim. Now we begin. Beresheet, and this is called Beresheet Taman. Now why is it called Beresheet Taman as a title? Just because that's the first words of it. Taman only means over there. And we'll see what it means. Just like the Tanya in the Lubavitch, it's not the name of the book, the Tanya. It's just because that's the first word that's used in the book. That's how they made a title in those days. So here's Beresheet Taman. So it says like this. Beresheet, the word Beresheet. Taman Terei, Taman Shabbat. Sham Terei, Sham Shabbat. Over there it says Terei, and over there it says Shabbat. We'll get to this in a second. Kigvana, Kemochen, also, Da Beresheet, in the word Beresheet, Bara Shetei. It says he created two, which is Bara Shetei. Some Girsaot actually have it as saying Barashit, which means six, like Shesh. He made or he created six. Ve'inun Terei Shabbatot. Vehen Shetei Shabbatot. These are referring to the two Shabbats. And we'll see what it's talking about. But now, just to explain this, what's happening here. As we know, the Tikunei Zohar is about the word Bereshit and 70 ways to explain it. Now, the way Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai explained what's in Bereshit, usually he would make words come out of the word Bereshit. Like it says, we know about Matan Torah, it was Esh Dat Lamo, was a fiery Torah. So in the word Bereshit, you can divide it into the words Berit, Esh, a Brit, a covenant of fire. So look how a teaching of it you can find in Bereshit. Also the word Rosh Bait, head of the house, which is the tzaddik, and many different things. Now he wants to show us about the idea of two Shabbats, which we didn't explain yet. It's going to come up. But he wants to show how the lesson of two Shabbats is in the word Bereshit. But the problem is, two, which is Terei, and the word Shabbat, you can't find it in there because it takes up the taf twice. You can't work it that way. But you could, meaning the next best thing is even if you have to use a letter twice. So that's why it's saying, over there, meaning in it, it has the word Terei, and in it, it has the word Shabbat. Just go with that, Rabbi Shimon is saying. So that's really what that means in the beginning. It would be nice if it used up all the letters only once, but if it doesn't, and then you have to piggyback the taf, it's still okay. It's a valid way of learning and finding something in a word. But then he gives another option. He says, Kigvana, like another way, is Bereshit. You could have the words Bara Shetei. Let's go with that first. He created two. And with that, you don't have to use a double letter. It's exactly the word Bereshit is Bara Shetei. He made two, meaning two Shabbats. So why not go with that? Why have to use the one that says Terei and Shabbat and have to fiddle around with it? Because at the end, he made two doesn't say that he made two what? He made two Shabbats. So it doesn't say it enough. So you still need the idea of Terei and Shabbat to go on. He's just saying, Rabbi Shimon, you can also find, if you want to play with it in the way of Bara Shetei, it also can allude to the two Shabbats, even though it doesn't explicitly say it. Now, some Girsot say Barashit, he made six. Now, it says right after, Ve'inun Terei Shabbatot, these are the two Shabbats. That's why really Shetei fits better in a way. Some Sidurim say Shetei. It's the same word. Shetei or sheet is the same letters. Now, why would 6 even fit in here? We're talking about 2 Shabbats. Where'd 6 come in? So the truth, we can fit the 6 in as a lesson, but we have to explain a little bit more, and then you'll see how even to say 6 does fit. These are the 2 Shabbats, like we said. Okay, so that's it. That's really the end of the lesson. It's just showing how the idea of 2 Shabbats is in the word Beresheet. That's all you need to know. But now we're going to say, Alayhu itimar, aleihem ne'emar, on it is said, meaning now we're going to see what the lesson of the 2 Shabbats is, even though we just plugged it into a word of Beresheet. So in Parashat Ki Tisa, you have what we recite in the Kiddush in the day. Veshameru b'nei Yisrael tashabbat, and Israel will keep the Shabbat, la'asot et Shabbat, to do the Shabbat, lidorotam, berit olam. Now it just says vegomer, meaning etc. But let's just read it a quick second. They will keep the Shabbat, do the Shabbat for all generations, berit olam, an everlasting covenant. Beni o ben bnei Yisrael, between me and between all of Israel, oti leolam, it is a sign forever. Ki sheshet yamim, because 6 days, asa Hashem et hashamayim v'ta'aretz, he made the heavens and the earth. Ubiyom hashvi'i Shabbat v'nafash, and on the 7th day he rested, and as Onkelos says, vanach, he rested, meaning vayinafash is also a word of rest, has to do with the nefesh and different things, not getting into that. Okay, so we're going to play around now with this paragraph. The Zohar here is going to play around with it to see what things mean. So now it says, Teren zimnin shetei pa'amim, 2 times, adkir hacha Shabbat, or idkar, it says in some places in the Sidur, hacha Shabbat, his kir kan Shabbat. It says over here, Shabbat. Meaning, in this Vishameru, it says twice Shabbat. It says Vishameru b'nei Yisrael Shabbat, they will keep the Shabbat, and la'asot et Shabbat, and will do the Shabbat. So why say it twice? So it says, lakobel, which is keneged, shechinta ila'a v'tata'a, shechina elyona v'tachtona, the high and the low shechina. So now this needs to be explained. And the truth, this is the end, really, of the lesson. The next things are just going to be more about the Vishameru. But this explained the 2 Shabbats. Now, whether we caught it or not, it explained it. But now let's understand what it means. So we look into the Ramchal in Derech Hashem to see the answer. Because again, he's always explaining the Nimshal, the explanation of the Mashal, which is the Zohar. Now he says here in the 4th section, in Perek Shevi'i, the 7th chapter, Ha'avodah hazemanit, periodic observances. This is, of course, in the Avodah section of what we do, all the mitzvot. Now in paragraph 2, he's talking about the Shabbat. And he says how it's a cycle of 6 days and then 1 day Shabbat in a week. But now he says like this, this cycle of 7 also exists on a larger scale, spanning all the years of human history. Existence is divided into 6 periods, each containing 1,000 years, followed by a 7,000th year period, which will be a period of rest. At the end of this large-scale cycle of 7, all existence will be renewed under a new organization and order, according to the highest wisdom's decree. And just to read the Hebrew of that, it says Sheshet alafim ve'elef menucha ve'achar kach titchadesh ha'havaya lamitziyut. We can also find this in the beginning of the book Derech Hashem 139, where he quotes the Gemara of Sanhedrin, page 97a, where it says Shita alfei shenei Have alma, 6,000 years will the world be, vechad charuv, and 1 desolate, ulsof elef shana hakadosh baruch hu chozer mechadesh et olamo. And on the next 1,000th year, Hashem will start to renew His world. Okay, so now we see, we're talking about 2 Shabbats. So here they are. There's the small mini Shabbat, which is the 7th day, and we have that every week. And then there's the larger, more global Shabbat, which is the 7,000th year, which will be desolate, meaning Shabbat, it's like everything will cease. It's not Olam Haba yet. That's why we said 6,000 years this world, 7,000th year where it will be Shabbat. Everything ceases, whatever that means. And then the 8,000th year, and going to the 10th, and then eternity is already the Chidush HaOlam, the new world, which is Olam Haba. So you have Olam Haba, and you have the Great Shabbat. The Great Shabbat is the 7,000th year. So now it makes sense. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat. When Israel will keep the Shabbat, meaning the 7th day Shabbats, all of them through history, then la'asot et Shabbat. That will be in order to make the Shabbat, to make the global 7,000th year. Meaning Olam Haba is not going to come unless we make it. We make it by doing the mitzvot. The great Shabbat is not going to come unless we do all the little Shabbats, and it's going to make and bring the great Shabbat. So that's why one Shabbat, the small Shabbat, has to be kept in order to make or bring about the larger Shabbat, which is again a prelude or a precursor or a me'ain Olam Haba, which means the 7,000th year is like a small amount of what's going to happen in the 8,000th year and on. Now the Zohar didn't say that. It said it refers to the Shekhinah, the higher and the lower one. That's all it said. What does that have to do with anything? So first of all, the Shekhinah is Hashem, but it's another word really to say how Hashem represents himself in Malchut, which is the Sefirah of where Shabbat is. Like Shabbat and Malchut and Shekhinah, these are all words that kind of go in the same slot. So when it says Shekhinta ila avetata'a, it means really the high and the low Shabbat. It's just the Shekhinah is there also, meaning. So there is the high and the high one and the low one. Meaning the high one is the 7,000th year and the low one is the 7th-day one. It's like a cell in a body. The cell and the body are the same. It's just one's small and one's large. So that's what the Zohar means, that there's two Shabbats, the great one and the lower one. Now, according to the Kabbalah and Sefirot-wise, it has to do with Malchut, which is our 7th day, is always Keneged Malchut, like we said. And then Binah, we say the Nun Sharei Binah is going to come when it's Mashiach time and getting into the great Shabbat, which comes right after, is already Binah. And Binah would be, also is considered the Ima, the mother, and the daughter, so to speak, of the Sefirot, is the Malchut, without getting into all this. So there's the mother and the daughter. That's why two females, and that's why the Shekhinah, which is the feminine aspect of Hashem, this is what it means. The higher Shekhinah is as she is as in Binah, and as she is in Malchut is the lower Shekhinah. Now, what does it mean there's two females, the mother and the daughter? My mother is a mother, but when she goes to her parents' house, of course, Alehem HaShalom, she was the daughter. So one girl is a mother and a daughter. It doesn't mean two people. It's all Hashem. Everything about Hashem, it's all one. It's just as he or she is portrayed as Binah or as Malchut. But it's the same God in all the Sefirot. The Sefirot is really like one big family in a way. You have the grandfather, then you have the father and the mother, then you have the sons, 6 sons, and the daughter. Anyway, without getting into all that. So now we have an understanding of the two Shabbats and its lesson. And that's it. The only reason the Zohar here doesn't end is because it has more to say on the topic. But it covered already the idea, and it found it in the word Beresheet, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that it says 2 of them are in there, Terei and Shabbat. And now Barashite. Now if it said Barashit 6, we understand, because if it says he created 6 in the word Bereshit, when you say 6, it means you think of 6 days and God rested on the 7th, so it's still alluding to Shabbat. So if you want to say he created 6, it does allude to Shabbat, so it has that teaching in there. And now the Zohar just wants to continue explaining the Pesukim of Veshamru. So now it says, Ledorotam. Let's explain Ledorotam. Mai Ledorotam. Ahu Ledorotam. What does it mean, the word Ledorotam, to all generations? Ella zaka'a ihu man de'avid lon dira b'shabbat betre bate liba. Ella zakaihu mi she'oseh lahem dira b'shabbat Bishnei Bate Halev. Praiseworthy is the person who makes for them, those two Shechinot, a dwelling place on Shabbat in their two parts of their heart. Meaning we have two parts in our heart, the right and the left side. And there's two parts of Shekhinah, we said, which is the Binah and the Malchut. So the Binah will be on the right side, and the Malchut part, which is the feminine, will be on the left side. Like we say, the Bet HaMikdash, the Shekhinah, we say, V'shachanti betocham, God made a Mikdash, and He will dwell among them. And it doesn't say betocho, among it, which means Hashem or the Shekhinah dwells in everybody's heart, each and everyone's heart. So here we're saying the same thing. Praiseworthy is the person who makes his heart be a dwelling place for the two parts of the Shekhinah, in his right and his left part, on Shabbat, meaning every Shabbat we can do this by keeping Shabbat. Hashem will dwell in us in that way. And this comes from the word ledorotam. Dorotam is that word dira. Dira is like an apartment, meaning to dwell in. So it means ledor, ledar. That's why it doesn't have a vav. Ledorotam, you see. So it's like ledar, to dwell, tam, in them, to dwell in them. So you see, that's how the pasuk is flowing. Meaning we'll keep the Shabbat in order to make the great Shabbat, and we will be a dwelling for those Shekhinah. Ve'itpenei mitaman yetzer hara, v'nifna misham yetzer hara. When the Shekhinah goes in our hearts, the yetzer hara will go out of the left side of the heart, because it's there. Di'yu chilul Shabbat, shehu chilul Shabbat, which is the opposite of Shabbat Kodesh. This is already chilul Shabbat, which is again the Sitra Achra or the Yetzer Hara. Like we say, we have to love Hashem with Bechol Levavecha, two hearts, which is the Yetzer HaTov, which is the right, and the Yetzer Hara, which is on the left. So when we fill up both our hearts with good stuff, with the Shekhinah of top and bottom, there's no room for the Yetzer Hara now in the left part, because we brought in something good. So then he goes away. And he's about all Chilul Shabbat, and not about Shabbat Kodesh. And again, how is all this done? V'shameru, by keeping Shabbat. That's the first part of the whole pasuk. Now more of the pasuk. It says Berit Olam in the pasuk. So what does this part mean? Da tzaddik, zo tzaddik. This is the tzaddik, because it says Berit. We know Berit has to do with the tzaddik that keeps the Brit Kodesh. Disharyan tarvaihu aleh, sheshorim shenehem alav. Like we say, Hashra'at Shekhinah, that it dwells, the Shekhinah. Shenehem, the two parts of the Shekhinah, alav, on him. Meaning the tzaddik is who the Shekhinot are going to dwell on. So we want to be like a tzaddik. And that's why it says, Berit Olam, meaning you have to be someone that shomer the Brit, Olam, always. And then you'll be a vessel for Hashem to dwell in your heart and even in all of you, basically, at the end. And it says like this, Chad le'am le'ale, ve'chad le'itmalya mineh. Echad le'male oto, ve'echad le'hitmale mimenu. One is to fill him, and one is to be filled by him. Meaning this tzaddik, which is really, you can classify the tzaddik as Yesod, the Sefirav Yesod, but it's also the entire Ze'er Anpin, which is called Zah, which is from Chesed to Yesod. So now you have Bina and you have Malchut. And in between them is this Zah, or Tzaddik. So the way it works is Bina flows into the Tzaddik, so to speak. It's like the reservoir, Bina, of light. So it goes into the six Sefirot and into Yesod. So it gives light into him, but then he gives light to the receiver, which is the Malchut. So that's why it's saying Bina gives the light to him, but Malchut receives the light from him. So it says one to give and one to be given by. That's what this was just saying. Just to show the relationship between the two, comparing them to the Ze'er Anpin, how it works in Kabbalah. And the words Brit Olam, Brit being like Tzaddik, we know the phrase Tzaddik Yesod Olam. because tzaddik is keneged yesod, and here's the word olam. So it's just showing that not only is Hashem going to dwell in the tzaddik yesod olam, that it's berit olam, that the dorotam, the dwelling, is going to be only in the great tzaddikim, but even in all of us, if we can shomer the brit the right way, then Hashem will dwell in us as well. And besides Him dwelling in us every minute of every day, on Shabbat there's a special amount more of kevayachol, so to speak, of Hashem dwelling in us. So Shabbat is the key day to make ourselves a vessel for Hashem to dwell in us. And when we do this for the small Shabbat, the capsule Shabbat, then Hashem will dwell in us when it comes the 7,000th year. And that's going to be something we can't even imagine, the good feeling and the simcha feeling that's going to be then. Now the continuation of the pasuk, it says, Brit Olam, Beini uben Bnei Yisrael. So it says, Bnei Yisrael. What does that mean? I mean, obviously we know what it means, that it means us, the Israelites. But it means more than just that, Kabbalistically. Inun teren kulyan netzach vehod. Hem shete kelayot netzach vehod. These are the two kidneys which are netzach and hod, those sefirot. Benoi di Yisrael Saba, banav shel Yisrael Saba, the sons of Yisrael the elder, meaning Yaakov Avinu is Yisrael. So it's saying the sons of Yisrael, but it refers to netzach and hod. And it says Yisrael Saba, like Saba, grandpa. Amudah de Emsa'ita is the middle row, Amud HaEmtza, which means of the Sefirot columns, we know Tiferet, which is Yaakov, Abraham on the right, Chesed, Yitzchak the left, Givurah, and Yaakov is the middle. That's what it says, the middle column, he's Tiferet. And so the Banim of Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, which means what comes out of Yisrael, which is Tiferet, is the next two Sefirot that's on the bottom of it, which is Netzach and Hod. So the Pasuk is saying, Beini uben Bnei Yisrael. Beini, which is like Bina, and going through Tiferet, Yisrael, and then to get to Netzach and Hod, which is Bnei Yisrael, and then it says, Ot hi leolam. Ot is again Yesod, and he is the feminine, so that's already down to the Malchut. So it's just showing how it went from Bina all the way down to Malchut. And the kidneys also have to do with Da'at, knowledge, and that Hashem is in them. Because we say in Mechtam le David in Tehillim 16, Abarech et Hashem asher yatzani, I will bless Hashem who gave me advice. Af leilot yisiruni chilyotai. And even at night, my kilyotai, my kidneys, will give me musar, will rebuke me. And leilot corresponds to Yaakov Avinu, because we say arbit at night corresponds to Yaakov. So it's again, Yaakov has something to do with the kidneys. And then it says, Lachen samach libi vayagel kivodi. And then my heart will be happy. And of course, all of me, af bisari ishkon labetach, all of me will dwell in tranquility. So again, many times you see correlations between the heart and the kidneys in different places in our prayers. We talk about both of them. Now the Zohar moves on to another pasuk in Beresheet, where we say, Vaychulu, Yom HaShishi Vaychulu. It says like this, Terat Shvi'i Shvi'i Shvi'i. Shalosh, meaning 3 times it says Shvi'i in that pasuk. It says, Vaychal Elokim b'Yom HaShvi'i, Vayishbot b'Yom HaShvi'i, and then it says, Vaybarech Elokim et Yom HaShvi'i. 3 times Shvi'i. Ilen Telat Abahan Oneg Shabbat. Elu Shilosha Avot Oneg Shabbat. These are the 3 Avot of Oneg Shabbat. The Zohar is just saying now, since we spoke about Yaakov Avinu, who's one Av, now let's just show you where the 3 Avot are also documented in, alluded to in Shabbat. So they brought now the Shvi'i that's written 3 times. And it really has to do with the 3 meals. The 3 meals, that's the Oneg Shabbat. But it has to do with the forefathers as well. It's actually in the order of Yitzchak, Abraham, and then Yaakov is how the meals go. Night, morning, and afternoon. So again, just to show the Avot here. Now, since it spoke about Oneg Shabbat, the Zohar is now going to tell us something else about Oneg Shabbat. So it keeps moving on, That's why it may look like nothing's related. It just keeps on saying, but it's obviously related to the point it made last. Now it's going to say a point more about it. So that's why it keeps moving on. Just keep your eye on the flow. Just like in Gemara, sometimes you have man de amar, someone who says something, and then they say other things that he said. You have to always keep your finger on the place and your mind on the flow of the ideas. So now it says, Oneg Shabbat. Those words, Oneg Shabbat, sometimes it could be with the words Tilat Avahan, which is Oneg Shabbat. Sometimes you see in the books, it's the next sentence. But either way, it works for both. Oneg Shabbat is V'nahar Yotze Me'eden Le'ashkot et Hagan. And like it says in Beresheet. And the river went out from Eden, Le'ashkot, to water the Gan. You know, Gan Eden is two places. You have the Gan, and then you have Eden. The Gan is lower. And then you have Eden is the real, pleasure. Eden is the real pleasurable place. But the Gan of the Eden is also pleasurable, but it's a lower Madrega level. Now, the Zohar already made its point, whether we caught it or not again. It says, Nahar, take the Nun. It's really the first letter after the Vav, because it's the main word, Nahar. And then Eden, even though it says Me'eden, really the Ayin is the main word. And then Hagan, again, Hey is just the Hey Yedi'ah, the real word is Gan. So if you take Nun, Ayin, and Gimel, it's Oneg. So you see Oneg Shabbat is being alluded to in this story of Bereshit with the river and going through the Gan Eden. So that's why I brought it, because we mentioned Oneg Shabbat with the forefathers. Now it's going to show us where it is in the Torah. And now that we mentioned the Nahar, now we're going to find something else about the Nahar. You see, it just keeps going and analyzing things as we keep on going. And so it says, V'nahar, this word V'nahar, the river. It nahar ve'it nahar. Yesh nahar ve'yesh nahar. Meaning there is a river and there is a river. There's two types. It nahar ditkere nahar pelagav. Yesh nahar shenekra nahar pelagav. There's a river that's called a river of splitting, like peleg, dor haflaga. Ve'it nahar ditkere nahal kidumim. V'yesh nahar shenekra nahal kidumim. And there's also a river that's called the brook of Kidumim, which would mean like preceding, like Kodem. So these are their names anyway, Nachal Pelagav, Nachal Kidumim. And the lesson here is there's two types of streams of water which represents or light. Like we say Torah is light, and water is a metaphor of that. So it means there's two ways that light comes down to us and to the Sefirot. So one is Pelagav, in strife and in competition, like Dora Pelaga, where people were fighting against Hashem. They weren't split among themselves, but the idea of being split from Hashem is where that word comes. Now this is before the vessels of the Sefirot broke. It says everybody was on their own. You know, again, we're the Sefirot. So we didn't think we need anybody. Everyone can do their own thing. And we didn't really last that way. We couldn't hold God's light that way. But when it became afterwards, we restructured ourselves to be like a family. That's where the family comes in, where you have 3 columns. 3 can stand. And you have the grandfather, the father, the mother, and the kids. So that's called Nachal Kidumim, meaning preceding, meaning there's a preceding one, which is the grandparents and the parents, and they bring in the next ones. That's just how they explain it. So that is the family-like structure of the Sefirot, which is the good way. They're just showing there's 2 ways to have the Nahar. One is the way that we're all in competition, and one is the way where we have Achdut, and we're like a family. That's why we say Avinu Malkeinu. If we're going to have Hashem be our Avinu, our Father, and judge us lightly, not like a king or a judge, we have to act like a family. There's a family that has a father. If we're just subjects, unrelated subjects, then there's no father. Father to who? Then he becomes a king. So if you want to act like a family, God says, then there's a father for that. So it's all up to us. Even though the Sefirot, which is us, are being constructed as a family, we still have to act that way down here, otherwise it causes much problems. And that's why it's called in heaven, the heavenly realm, with the angels, they're called the Pamalia Shel Ma'la. You'll see that in the Zohar in many places, which is the family, familia, familia of Ma'la. Because everyone in heaven knows that they're all related and they act like a family. No one's in competition to the other. The angels understand their relationship to each other. And it's up to us down here to mirror that. We all have to act like a family, and that's why the Sefirot is like one big family. That's the lesson of the whole thing. And these two Nahars, by the way, the one that is the Nahar that shows Achdut and brings Beracha comes from the song of Devorah when they beat Sisera. It says there, Nachal Kidumim. And in Tehillim, where David HaMelech is saying to destroy the enemies, he calls Nahar Pilagav, the river of separation, so to speak, that because the Goyim are separate from Hashem, that's going to be the river that wipes them out and destroys them. So the Pasuk says, the Nahar comes out from Eden, Nahar Yotze me'Eden. So we said something about the Nahar. Now about Eden, and it says Eden Ila'ah, Eden Elyon, the high Eden, which is really the Keter, or what's called Arich Anpin, the first Sephirah, which is again like the grandfather, if you want to look at it, on top of the father and the mother. Ale itmar, alav ne'emar, on this it says, the Pasuk in Yeshayahu Samech Dalid 64, Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zulatecha. No eye has seen, only Hashem. And the word Eden actually can allude to that, because Eden is Ayin Dan. Ayin is an eye that doesn't see. Who sees? Dan, like Dinim. The God as he is with his name Elokim of Din. So it's his eye. It's the eye of Elokim that only sees Olam Haba. Of course, we'll see it when we get there, which is the high Keter. We don't see that now. So Eden is a play on that. Ayin Din, Hashem as Elokim, he gets to see. Also, just to say about us, the pleasure of Eden, the pleasure of it, because it's called pleasure, is also Ayin Dan, which is when our eye will see the Dinim, will see all the bad things, so to speak, what happened to us in this world, and our eyes will finally see the truth of it, and we'll be so happy that we see that everything that happened to us was for a reason, and that's going to be what makes us so happy, because all the pain is going to go away. Like it says, we're going to bless Hashem for all the things that he did here, and we say Dayan Ha'emet, we're going to say Baruch HaTov HaMeitiv, which is another Gemara in Berachot. But you could play on that word Eden also, that our eye, Eden, Ayin, in Dan, in Dinim, when we see the Dinim and the truth of it, that's when we're going to have pleasure. That's what Eden is all about. Now it says, Hai Nahar Ihu Vav. Zeh Nahar Hu Vav. This Nahar that's coming out from Eden, the river, is about Vav. Because it has to do with, again, the what's called the Za or the Ze'er Anpin, which is the Yesod, and the Vav always represents the Yesod. Denafik me Eden Ila'ah, which is coming out of the high Eden, Sheotze me Eden Elyon, Shehu Aleph, which is Aleph, which means the Keter is connected to Aleph, because it's the first. Aleph is the first, and it's connected to the Keter, which is Arich Anpin, which is this Eden. Ve'avar ben Abba ve'ima, ve'ober ben Abba ve'ima, and it's going to come down now. The grandfather's, the light of it is going to come down, the river of light. It's going to come down through Abba and Ima, which is Chochmah and Bina, from Keter, ve'azir 500 shana, ve'olech 500 shana. It's going to go for 500 years. We'll see what that is in a second. Umateh ad tzadik shebe'i. Umagia ad tzadik shebe'i. And it's going to get through or to the tzaddik, which is Yesod, which is the seventh one. Seventh one meaning from Abba, if you count, because it's the sixth Sephirah, but if you're counting from one above it, it's really the seventh in that way. That's why Yesod could be the seventh one, just seeing how you count. Umitaman, umisham, from there, ashke legineta, mashke tagan, it's going to water the garden, de'ihi, or de'ihu, it says in some places, shechinta tata, which is the Shekhinah Tachtona, the lower Shekhinah, which is again the Malchut. So it's just showing you how it's going from top to bottom, from Keter to Abba and Ima, and then to the Yesod, and down to the Shekhinah, which is the Malchut. Now, what's this 500 years? Even Masechet Chagiga says to get to Shamayim, it takes 500 years. Of course, what does all this mean? Forget the years for a moment. 500 is the thing to be looking at. 500 means 5. There's 5 Sefirot to go from Bina to Yesod. Even though we said 7 before, that was just counting a different way. But now it's taking 5 to go from there to Yesod, meaning not including Yesod, if you want to say. That's why we're going to miss one. So it's 5 then going to the 6. So it takes 5 to get to the 6th meaning. Now every Sefirah has 10, and then there are breakdowns of 10, and then a breakdown of 10 again. So really 5 become 50 and then become 500. So it's just saying it goes through all those subcategories of the Sefirot to get to Yesod, which is the 6th, or the 7th counting from 1 back. So just not to be confused with how the numbers are working. Of course, we don't know what years mean and what it means, how long does it take to get to Shamayim. It may say these words, but we really don't know what it means as far as time is concerned, meaning. Now the Zohar resumes from something it was saying before. It finished analyzing all these words from different things that it got to. Now it's going back to something it said before, which is Zaka'a ihu man dinatir dira l'shabbat di'ihu liba. Zakaihu mi sheshomer dira l'shabbat shehi halev. So again, praiseworthy or meritorious is the person that keeps a dwelling place for Shabbat in his heart. If you remember, that's what we said before, in the 2 parts of the heart that the Shekhinah is going to go in. Dela itkeriv taman atzibu ditchol. Shelo mitkarev sham atzvut hatechol. That it won't go into there, or come close to there, a depression that comes from the spleen. You know, depression is very bad. It's not called a broken spirit, which is ruach nishbara, which is a good thing. It keeps you humble. This is where people despair and they think they can't do anything, and God forbid nothing's going to help, and they become lazy from it. So this is a bad thing, this depression which comes from the spleen. So we're saying when you put the right thing in your heart, this won't go in it. V'chas demara, and a bitter anger, you won't get that either. De'ihu nura de Gehinam, shehu esh ha-Gehinam. This is really the fire of Gehinam. So we don't want this in our hearts. That's why we push it out. Like it said before, Chilul Shabbat, it pushes this out, and the good stuff come in. If we do the right thing. Da'ala itemar, she'aleh ne'amar. On this it says in Shemot Lamed Hey, which is in Vayakel parasha, Lo teva'aru esh bechol moshebotechem b'yom haShabbat. You shall not kindle a fire in your dwelling place on Shabbat. And this means your own dwelling place and the fire of Gehinam, of anger. We shouldn't let it be in our hearts, which is our dwelling place inside of us. Ve'achihu vadai, ve'chachu vadai. And this is, of course, how it is. Dechol man dechais, shekol mishech koes, whoever gets angry, ki'ilu okid nura de Gehinam, ki'ilu madlik esh ha-Gehinam. It's like he's kindling the fire of Gehinam. And that's what it means. You shall not kindle a fire on Shabbat in your dwelling place. Don't get angry on Shabbat, of course all week also, but especially on Shabbat. And that, otherwise it's like you kindled the fire. We have to be careful about that. And that's why Erev Shabbat, things go, a little haywire in the house, because the Satan is trying to get us to get angry and then ruin the Shabbat. And then he's going to live in the heart and not the Shekhinah. Now you see why he's playing overtime. When the house gets a little haywire on Erev Shabbat, Friday afternoon, because he's trying to secure his apartment, which is us. And we shouldn't let that happen. Now being that the Zohar brought this pasuk, Lo Tevaru Esh, and it's like one of the melachot, which is kindling fire, even though it's not exactly, because really when it says you shall not do any work, Lo Taseh Kol Melacha, it includes all the 39. But it just brings this out for different reasons, but it's still one of the melachot in a sense. And the real meaning of this, as far as the 613 mitzvot, this pasuk, it says that the rabbis should not punish on Shabbat. They shouldn't kill someone by burning. And if burning anything else, Sekila, Serefa, Herek, Vachenek, on Shabbat. That's what this real pasuk really comes to teach. But it's brought down as one of the 39 melachot, which is kindling. So because of that, the point is, now that's why the Zohar is now going to go into about 39 melachot, or forbidden creative activities, which are forbidden to do. 40 melachot chaser chad. 40 melachot chaser achat. 40 activities minus 1, which is a way of saying 39. Inun lakobel 40 malkuyot chaser chad b'Shabbat. Hen keneged 40 malkut chaser achat b'Shabbat. This corresponds to the 40 minus 1, which is again 39 lashes, which are again forbidden to be given on Shabbat, along with all the other punishments, meaning. So it's 40 keneged 40. Ve'inun asara dilaka adam, vehen eser shelaka adam, and these also correspond, we'll see 39 lashes corresponded to 10 that Adam Arishon got punished by. V'asara lechava, 10 for chava. V'asara lenachash, 10 for the nachash, the snake. V'tish'a le'ar'a, and the aretz got 9, and that makes 39. In the story of Beresheet, Hashem punished also with this 39 lashes between all of those that we just mentioned. Ubgin da amru mare matnitin, umepnei ze amru ba'alei ha'mishnah. Because of this, the rabbis of the Mishnah said, En lokin b'Shabbat, that we don't get lashes on Shabbat. De'ilen she'elu, because these melachot, inun chashivin liYisrael lakobel malkuyot. Hen chashuvot liYisrael keneged malkut. These works, which is the melachot, are instead of these malkuyot, lashes. Now what this means is like this. There's a pasuk that says, Ki alecha horagnu kol hayom. On you, Hashem, we kill ourselves all day. It says in Tehillim. Now what do you mean killing ourselves? Because it's true, when we do a mitzvah, we're killing the physical. You know, I don't want to get up in the morning. I don't want to give some of my money away. I don't want to not eat what I want to eat. So it's like killing the physical. Not literally. But, you know, the will and the ego, that's what we're killing in a way. So every mitzvah in a way hurts. That's the point of the mitzvah. It hurts the body. It makes the soul happy, but it hurts the body. It doesn't want to do it. That's why it's down here, to do what's not comfortable. So now there's 39 lashes that have to come to a person, let's say, if we do sins. But if we do the 39 ways of suffering by not doing the milachot, the forbidden activities on Shabbat, because every mitzvah is a suffering, I want to cook, I want to carry, I want to do my regular life. So every one of those 39 is going to be like someone's whipping me with the malkut, which is the lashes. Because every melacha you don't do when you do the mitzvah right, it's as though you got lashes. So one can be for the other. If we do the 39 melachot the right way, meaning by not doing them, we can save ourselves the lashes that we might have had to have gotten from other things. So that's what it means, that one is keneged the other. And you see the words, Inun chashivin liYisrael, they will be considered to Israel, the melachot, as though it was the malkut, the malkuyot, keneged. So that's what's happening. That's how important we want to do the melachot. And that's what the Zohar was bringing down. Now, since it talked about the 39, it's going to pick on one and talk about Hotza'ah, which is carrying, or really domain change, from Reshut HaYachid, the private domain, to a public domain, Reshut HaRabim, or vice versa. Either way is carrying, called Hotza'ah or Yitzi'ah, the Mishnah says it. And you can look in the Mishnah in Shabbat to touch up on these laws. So we're going to see, it says now, Yitziot HaShabbat Shetaim, the laws of Hotza'ah Shabbat are two. And it says, Inun Akira v'Hanacha. And it talks about how you need two things, Akira and Hanacha, Da'avidlon bebat achat, she'oseotan bebat achat, that you have to do them in one action. Meaning what makes carrying is you have to uproot it from the private domain and then set it down in the public domain. You have to do both. If you would uproot it from your house, let's say, and then you just put your hand out the door and somebody else takes it and they put it down, so you both split the melacha, and that's rabbinically forbidden, but it's not the biblical law what is forbidden. So just to know the rules again. Now the reason we want to know these rules is because the Zohar is going to shed light on the halacha and its deeper meaning. It means something way more than just that. And let's see what it means. Man de'akar chefetz me'atre, mi she'oker chefetz me'mekomo, whoever uproots an object from its place, in the Reshut HaYachid, of course, private domain, ve'anach lebar me'atre u'mershute, u'meiniach oto lechutz me'mekomo u'mershuto, and he sets it down in another place and another reshut, ki'ilu a'akar ilana dechaye, ki'ilu oker etz ha'chayim, it's as though he uprooted the tree of life, shehu ot berit de'ihu ot berit, which is the ot berit, the covenant and the yesod, ve'anachle birshu nuchra'a, u'meiniach oto birshut zara. And it's like he put it in another domain. Like we say, the public domain is like another domain. So by carrying and making domain change, the avon causes the Shabbat and the Kiddusha to also go into the domain of the Sitra Achra. Now it says, Man da'abid da, Misha says there, whoever does this, Gerim, Gorem, he causes da'akar nishmate mershut dila, she'oker nishmato mershut shela, he takes his neshama from his own reshut, ve'anachla birshu achara, u'meniach ota birshut acheret, and he puts it into another reshut, and that's what it says achara is like sitra achara. Mara utchol, of this great depression, which is again the Yetzer Hara, the sitra achara, the Satan, and all that. So by doing an act of carrying, we think, oh, what's the big deal? So I carried something. And you see what it does now. In a higher way, you also put something that was private and you put it into the public, which is the Sitra Achara. Now that happened to your own neshama. Veda garam l'Yisrael de'it'akeru me'ar'ad Yisrael. And we even did more than that. Veze garam l'Yisrael shene'akru me'eretz Yisrael. That sin causes Israel to leave its land, because again it's Reshut HaYachid, ve'itgali'u be'ar'a nuchra'a, ve'galu be'eretz zara, and it goes to a foreign land. De'ihi Reshut HaRabim, which is the Reshut HaRabim. You know, Israel is like our Reshut HaYachid, our private domain, and the Shekhinah is with us, and we're there. So when we do an act of carrying and putting something that it's not supposed to be in another reshut, and we put it there, so now it makes a great ripple effect in a higher way, that it now means Israel and the Shekhinah and everyone that's supposed to be in Israel gets thrown out. And it goes to the public. And we become now in exile in the public domain. See, our mitzvot are wired to such great things. They're not just simple little mitzvot. And this is just one example the Zohar is picking on Hotza'ah. What about all the others? What do they do in Shamayim? Who can imagine? And now we see what the Zohar is really about. It teaches us It takes sometimes halachot, things of a pshat, and it sheds light. The Zohar means light, like Sohar, the window of Noach's teva, ark. It was a window to bring light. Sohar, a Zohar, and it sheds light on things in a higher way. Meaning, what's going on in Shamayim with our laws? That's what it means, the Zohar, shedding light on it. That's why it's very holy and very secretive. And it continues and says, Vehachi ihu, which means vekachu. It's also, meaning the Zohar is now going to explain, another thing that we might do wrong is also going to cause the Shekhinah to go in exile and the Jews. Meaning, also this, man de'a'il ot brit kodesh dile, mi shemachnis ot brit kodesh shelo, someone who actually puts his brit kodesh, his real organ, birshu nuchra'a, in the reshut of a nochri, of a goy or goya. Look at that. When a person goes with someone that he's not allowed, doesn't have to be goya. I mean, even a Jewish girl, if you didn't marry her, but certainly more goya. I mean, a Jewish girl, if you didn't marry her, it'll be technically you're married. But a goya, you have no right with her. In fact, like Yosef and Potiphar's wife. Of course, that was Eshet Ish. That's even more wrong. But even a regular unmarried woman, because she's considered Reshut Harabim, so to speak, she's not part of the Jewish nation, which is Reshut HaYachid. So by putting now your Yesod there, you now made another ripple effect in Shamayim that it's going to cause Israel and the Shekhinah to now have to move out of their home and their Reshut and go into the public domain, which is the Sitra Achra. So people, I mean, I hate to talk like this, people want to fool around. They don't realize what's happening. You don't realize what you're doing, what repercussions. There's more to life than just what we think it is. We're wired to something greater. Something greater happens when we do things. When we do mitzvot, great things happen. And when we do averot, great negative things happen. This should motivate us to keep the mitzvot and not do the wrong thing. There's great effects. There's great consequences that happen for all the acts that we do down here. Now the Zohar says, Shabbetai, ihu techol, chama iteta bisha mara. You'll notice the words of techol and mara, like we said, the spleen and ka'as and mara of being bitter. So the Zohar is explaining back to this now. So now Shabbetai, this is a planet, like Shabbat. Shabbat is what's called the seventh planet. It is the seventh planet, and that is Saturn, Saturday. Saturn that has a ring around it, like the crown of Shabbat, because it's crowned. It's the Malchut. Look how interesting. Now it says like this, Shabbetai ihu techol. Hu techol, which is the spleen, which is of depression. Now why would Saturn be bad? So it doesn't mean Saturn. It means there's good and bad. There's a Sitra de Kedusha, the holy side, and there's a Sitra Achara. Here we're talking about the evil aspect of Shabbatai, just like everything has an evil aspect. And just like ourselves, we have a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara. The way the Matok Midvash explains, it's the Kochot Hara'im Shel Shabbatai that is Sholet, which means the power, the evil power of Shabbatai, which dominates, or it could dominate if we let it, meaning. So this is talking about the negative part of Shabbatai, which comes on Shabbat because it is Malchut. It's just a planet. The Zohar could have just said Malchut. It's just using Shabbatai. I'm sure for other reasons. Now it says Chama, the sun. Iteta bisha is the isha ra'a, the evil wife, mara and bitter. So we're talking about, in a sense, the evil women, the bitter women, because Malchut is of feminine, and this evil wife is feminine, obviously the wife, which would mean this Chama is talking about not Keter, which is masculine, which usually the sun would be Keter, but here it's the Bina. Bina again is the feminine, and it's also the three brains, Keter, Chokhmah, Bina. In a way, it could be also like a sun in a sense. So that's what it's just saying. Now, why is it bringing these two? Because you remember we were talking about the Malchut and the Bina that were going to bring the Shekhinah in them, in our hearts. So we're just comparing it to the opposite now, because we just said if you do certain things of Chilul Shabbat, we're going to strengthen the other side. So here the Zohar wants to explain to us, even scare us, and tell us what is that other side that you're going to strengthen. Let's tell you what's it about. So maybe you won't strengthen it. It says, Shabbatai ale itemar, Shabbatai alav ne'emar. It said about this Shabbatai, V'habo rek en bo maim. Maim en bo, aval nechashim v'akrabim yesh bo. Yosef in the pit, in Vayeshev, it says he was in the pit and the pit was empty, there was no water. But if it's empty, of course there's no water. So again, the Midrash says water it was empty of, but it means there was something else there, which is the nechashim and akrabim, snakes and scorpions, which means evil goes into where water, Torah, is not. There's no vacuum. It's either Torah, side of good, or evil. The snake, like the nachash, is in there. Ve'ihu, and it is these things, Ra'av, V'simaon, V'kina, V'hesped, V'chashocha, V'kivla. All these words. It means Ra'av, Simaon, hunger and thirst, V'kina, V'hesped, kina like kinot. You know, when we say things of eulogy, V'hesped, again, a eulogy, things of mourning, meaning V'choshech, darkness, and kivlaz afela, again, thick darkness. These have the 6 things in it. Now, why 6 things? Because this is a malchut after all. A malchut holds the other 6 things or 9 things, however you look at it. And this is like a vessel, just like the board, the pit. The pit held the snakes in it. Just like a malchut vessel will hold things in it, either good or bad. All the berachot in the good side and all the kilalot in the bad side. So all these things is in there. Shabbatai holds all these things. I mean, whatever that means. The malchut at least. And there's 6 things because Shabbat being the 7th, it holds the 6 things of the 6 sefirot from above it, which is what the days of the week are about. Just like we have our bread. We have 2, 4, 6 breads on Shabbat, including Seudah Shlishit. You're supposed to have 2 breads on each. And that corresponds to the days of the week. That's the beracha. Each 2 breads is Sunday, Monday, then Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. But if you don't do Oneg Shabbat, it's going to be sad things and evil things. That's going to be depressing things is going to be part of our week. If we don't do those seudot and have Oneg Shabbat and keep Shabbat and all what it said on the page before. That's why we want to keep Shabbat. So if you don't bring in the Oneg Shabbat with 6 things, and it's going to affect the 6 days of the week, you're going to bring in the evil things, and that's going to affect your 6 days of the week. You're going to get all these nice presents here. Choshech v'kivla lo aleinu. And it says, Ve'ihu galuta l'Yisrael. Vehi galut l'Yisrael. This is where the galut of Israel comes from. When you strengthen this evil side, we all end up in galut. And the Shekhinah. Utzrichin Yisrael le'me'bad la shinui. Israel has to do now something different. Bechola, bakol, v'ha'akmua, v'harehem iduhu, like we've explained. Meaning we have to do something different to combat this, which is again to do Shabbat and do Oneg Shabbat and don't let these things come in. That's the thing different that we're going to do. Is do Oneg Shabbat with the 6 breads like we're supposed to. Also, then the Shekhinah will go in our hearts in the Bina and the Malchut, and we won't have the evil stuff in our Bina and Malchut. Now it says, Ve'ihu dibur dechol, vehu dibur chol, this secular talk that we're not allowed to do on Shabbat, De'ihu asir b'Shabbat, that we're not allowed to do on Shabbat, Vechad la ashkachat ata l'shariyat Taman, Vechasher lo motzet makom l'shrot sham. When the evil side sees that it has nowhere to dwell, because we didn't talk things of secular, and we didn't get angry and all the other things that it said before, depression, part of it is not to speak words of the regular week. You have to speak vidaber davar, like it says in the Kiddush and in the Navi. So when that happens, when you do all these things right, which is really called Shemirat Shabbat, Ihi borachat. He borachat. She flees away. She goes away. These two evil ladies, so to speak, which just means those spirits, they go away. And then we have only the good Shekhinah and the good spirit with us. Ki gavna de shivcha de Avraham de timarba, kemo shivchat Avraham shene'amarba, just like, as an example, the shivcha, the maid of Avraham, which was Hagar, that it says by her, Mepene Sarai Givirti Anochi Borachat. She says to the angel when she was running away, she said, I am from the face of my mistress Sarai, I am running away. So this means more than just Hagar running from Sarah. It means the malchut of evil, because she was a wife of Avraham, wasn't she? Hagar. So she's a malchut. The wife is malchut, the female. So you have the evil malchut, which was Hagar, because from Mitzrayim, and she really never did change. And then you have Sarah, who was the good malchut, who represented the Shekhinah. She lit the candles and she did all the things, so she did everything right. So that's what it says. Because Sarai or Sarah is doing everything right, Hagar has to flee from her. So that's just showing a proof of what we said above. And the Zohar continues with the word tichol, again, the spleen or the negative female, in order just to explain it more. Allah itemar, Alav ne'emar, on it says, which is the pasuk in Shemot by the burning bush, Shal ne'alecha mal raglecha. Hashem told Moshe, take off your shoes from your feet. Na'al mitunaf de tipa sirucha. Na'al mitunefet shel tipa sirucha. This is a dirty shoe, which is from a putrid drop, which is from the zera, meaning. What does this mean? It's just saying that the malchut is on the bottom part of the Etz Chaim, of the tree. So it also corresponds to the shoes, because the shoes is like on the bottom. I mean, the feet also, but the shoes in a sense also, because it's housed in the shoes, just like malchut is a vessel, so the shoes is like a vessel. And so Hashem was telling Moshe, now because you're in a holy place, take off your shoes, take off the evil, so to speak, that you might have on you, and we're going to put in the good in its place. That's why it says, Ki hamakom asher ata omed alav admat kodeshu. This place you're on here is now a holy place. And that's why he said to do what he did. Da Shabbat, and this is Shabbat, because again, the Adama, Admat Kodesh, the ground again is like Malchut, because down here, and that corresponds again to Shabbat, which is Malchut. So it's just showing that we want to take off the bed in order to bring in the good. Now, why Tipa Sirucha? Tipa Sirucha can make a child. Why is it considered a bad thing? Because it means if it's Levatala, we're saying like a Zera Levatala, is turns out to brings Tum'ah, right? If you touch that, it brings Tum'ah. So it is something on the side of the Sitra Achra in that sense. That's why it's about the Techol. Now another pasuk, it says, Va'ale amrat shechinta, ve'alav omeret shechina. On this the Shekhinah says, which is in Shir HaShirim, the 5th Perek. It's really Bnei Yisrael or Knesset Yisrael who is talking, but this is the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah, as opposed to Kucha B'richu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is who's speaking, which is the Shekhinah or Knesset Yisrael. It says, Pashati et kutonti echachal b'shena, rachatzi et raglai echacha atan nefem. So basically it means I took off my clothes. How can I go out now and rewear them? I already washed my feet. How can I go and now dirty them? So there's many meanings to that, but the meaning that works for this lesson is that the Shekhinah or Knesset Yisrael is saying, I took off my dirty clothes. How can I go wear now them again? And I washed my feet, like we just said, take off your shoes, Moshe. So again, a play on the words, that I washed my feet. How can I get them dirty again? Showing that we want to replace the evil with good. It's just a playing on that pasuk of what was said about Moshe also. So the rest of us want to do the same thing, because we're Knesset Yisrael. And it says, Atan nefem, echacha atan nefem, how can I make them dirty? Like it said on top, na'al mitunaf, a dirty shoe. So again, we don't want to be dirty, we want to keep the good in and not let the bad come in. We want the good wife to be in and not the bad wife, or the bad malchut, which is the wife of the samach mem, of the sitra achara, or the satan. We want to stay away from all that. And again, on Shabbat is where we try to push them all away. And it says, Ubigin da umepeneze, because of this, tzarich barnash b'Shabbat, tzarich ben adam b'Shabbat, a person has to do on Shabbat these things in order to push away the evil. He has to l'shanuye bilvushin b'shraga b'ma'achalin. He has to l'shanot bilvushim b'ner b'ma'achalim. He has to make a change in his clothing, in light, the nerot, and in food. So it means we have to do the Shabbat things, which is to wear Shabbat clothing, because this way, like it said above, how can I wear dirty clothes? So you're supposed to not wear weekly clothes. Doesn't mean dirty, really dirty. It means of a weekday. So we want to not let that happen. We want to not wear weekday clothes on Shabbat. We want to change our clothes. And then we want to bring in the ner, which is the nerot Shabbat, the light, because that takes away the darkness. And foods. We want to do, again, the oneg Shabbat, so we don't have the opposite of Shabbat, the 6 breads instead of the 6 things of evil, again. So that's how we don't let the evil come in, is by doing these things. וצריך למהווה מוסיף מחול על הקודש. וצריך להיות מוסיף מחול על הקודש. Another thing that we have to do is we have to add from the weekday to the holy day, which means adding some time from when it's not Shabbat yet to make Shabbat a little early, which in a way we do, because we do before the sun, candle lighting, it's still really before the time, and things like that. So we are doing that, but that's the point. You want to take from Chol and make it Kodesh, because this has to do with the klipot. There's 4, without getting into it now, there's 4 klipot. 3 are very bad, that has to be destroyed. And the 4th one, which is really the first one, if you want to look at it, has good and bad. And the bad of that is going to turn and join the good. So you really have 3 that are no good, and the one that it's like quasi, we're going to make it good. And that has to do with the chazir, the pig, that's going to choser b'tshuba. It's going to choser, that we're going to be able to eat it in Yemot HaMashiach, without getting into all that, just to show about it turning good again. And that's what it means. When we put a little bit of chol into Shabbat, it's like we're taking something that was mundane and we're making it holy. So we're taking something of the Sitra Achra and turning it into Kedusha by bringing Shabbat in early. That's what we're doing. Now it says, V'chol ha-mosif mosifin le nefesh yetera b'Shabbat. V'chol ha-mosif mosifin lo nefesh yetera b'Shabbat. Whoever does do this by adding, then he adds and gets his nefesh yetera on Shabbat, his extra soul on Shabbat. V'chol ha-goreya gor'in le hahi nefesh yetera chas v'shalom. V'chol ha-goreya gor'im lo ota nefesh yetera chas v'shalom. And whoever takes away from Shabbat, he also takes away from his Shabbat soul, the extra soul, chas v'shalom. Which means this idea of Tosefet Shabbat, that's what it's called, the adding to Shabbat, whether it's from bringing it in and also ending a little bit later. We don't end the regular time, like 20 minutes after sunset. Sometimes we say it could be considered night, but we wait a little bit more, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever the minhag is. So we're always adding. From doing candle lighting, it's, we're adding because it's already just a little bit before sunset. And then even sunset could be considered like it's adding, because maybe night is after sunset. And then, of course, at the end, the back end, when it ends, we're also adding. So these two parts of adding, which is part of the halacha, we do this on purpose, because this is where it says in this Zohar that our extra neshama is coming to us because of this. So we have to make sure to bring Shabbat early and end it late, which is the regular times, and don't cut those out. Now, in the Sidur, it doesn't want to end off in a negative note. So it says the Goreya and Gor'in le first, and then it says Kol mosif mosifin le nefesh yetera b'Shabbat, and then it says Baruch Hashem leolam amen ve'amen. Because when you're reading it in the Sidur, however they put it together, it just whoever did it wanted to end it off on a good note, so they put the mosifin to be last. But when you look in the Zohar, it's written the way we read it here. And of course, we said that it is a great sigula and brings great tikunim to say this. And of course, every tikkun in the Zohar has special things attached to it and causes great things in Shamayim. May Hashem give us much blessing, much beracha.